And with that, I want to bring in Hallie Jackson right now, an anchor here on NBC News Now, as well as MSNBC. Hallie, we met on the campaign trail in 2016, covering his first campaign. You followed him into the White House, and now 2024 starts today in 2022. I know you've been talking to Republican sources all over the party. The GOP, and I think Senator Ted Cruz really put it best. He said, if he's the nominee, I will support him. And I think that's the position a lot of Democratic, I should say Republican donors and Republican leaders are in right now.
Yeah, and Chuck knows this well. I was struck by his interview on Meet the Press on Sunday with Senator Bill Cassidy, who, by the way, is no Trump supporter, who wouldn't answer the question, right? If he is the nominee, would you support him? Let's be clear about what's happening tonight, Tom. I think it's important to lay this out because we've alluded to it, but you have now a former president whose actions inspired a violent insurrection at the Capitol as part of a push to illegitimately stay in power 2 years ago, the only president to have been impeached twice, making another run at the White House now, right? The third attempt to do this. He was successful in 2016, which is why you're seeing an interesting dynamic at play in this speech, I think. He is both simultaneously pointing to some of what he did in his 4 years in the White House, but also trying to time travel back to his winning campaign in 2016. I was told prior to the speech that there would be a lot of 2016 vibes in here. There are. He's being very explicit about it. It is not erasure of his time in office because he is still obviously citing what he did as president. He had sort of a head scratcher of a comment about how he went decades without war in his 4 years in office. Obviously, that's what he served. But he is both pointing to what he did in office, but also to before he actually made it into office. And Chuck is hitting on something important here. He will be running, and he wants to run, according to folks that I've talked with, an anti-Washington campaign, despite the fact that he was in Washington. He was the guy at the controls for 4 years, right, as the leader of the free world here. He also is trying to point to the scoreboard, to his grip on the Republican Party, because for years, right, ever since 2015, when he came down that golden escalator and a very different sort of vibe announcement, if you will, he has been able to point to the support of people in his base, right? The base that he created. You're seeing that moment there that we all remember so well, Tom. He is trying to point to that now by saying, hey, the Republican voters are with me. Because, yes, he will say, hey, the Republican establishment, they're not me. I've always fought against them. He'll point to Mitch McConnell. He'll point to the people that he isn't huge fans of inside the Republican Party, inside the Beltway. But he'll say the voters are with me, right? That has been his point all along. So when he cites the scoreboard in these midterm elections and says, hey, 200-plus people that I endorsed were backed by, Trump-loyal voters, what he's leaving out are that the 20-plus people who lost, right, the smaller number of people who he endorsed who did not win, were the most important ones. They were the ones who were going to deliver control of the Senate to Republicans and who did not. They were the ones who would have, if they had gotten into these positions as top elections officials or governors in some of these key states, potentially helped to foment insecurity and election fraud conspiracies around a potential 2024 campaign. They didn't make it into office, right? So it is interesting to me that he's talking about the scoreboard in a way that leaves out what is one of the most important pieces of context. And you know who else is talking about the scoreboard today, Tom? Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, in his first remarks responding to the attacks against him by former President Trump, ending his remarks by saying, well, you could say, look at the scoreboard on Tuesday. Ron DeSantis had a good night on election night, right? His state ended up red. The people he wanted to back ended up getting into office here. And I think as you're looking ahead to what is almost certainly going to be a contested primary here, that is going to be a dynamic at play. Can I just also say, you've also got people tonight trying to take advantage of this moment, and you might have seen it too. Governor Asa Hutchinson, for example, sort of cryptically tweeting, hey, as we're talking about 2024, I want to be a leader in the party as well. Like, you're going to start to see some of the floodgates open here for folks coming into the mix.
Yeah, we're going to have to wait and see what Republicans end up doing and what Governor Ron DeSantis does.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.